Alafia. I'm Dr. Gloria Lattimore Peace, host and producer of OmniU Presents the H3O Art of Life show. That brief opening melody was actually composed by my guest, and it was a part of an exhibit at the planetarium called African Skies,
Yes.
in which Brother Kelan, Phil Cohran, was a major component. And I don't know where he wants to begin, but I want to begin wherever he goes, because there's so much history sitting in that chair that we are very privileged to be able to tap into it. So where shall we start, Brother Kelan?
Well, I can tell you a good joke.
Okay.
My name is Cohran. I emphasize Cohran, but in Mississippi, where I was born, it was called Cohran.
All right.
And so the white Cohrans who are living, I think, in Texas, called up and said they were including me in their genealogy.
Now that is something laughable. Well,
because there's so many hits on Google and Facebook, and you know what I mean.
Right.
And that's where I start, because I just got, actually I was born in Oxford, Mississippi, and I guess one of the students there working on his PhD at Ole Miss lives in Arkansas, and he publishes a book called, a periodical called Oxford American, the Oxford American.
All right.
And it deals with the culture of the South. And so there's an extensive article on Facebook on me, and in that publication just came out last week.
Very good. We'll be looking at that.
Yeah, so if you're looking on the internet, you can find copies of it. I haven't seen it myself, but there's another article also called Kelan Phil Cohran, Never the Same, by a University of Chicago professor. And there's a 20-page interview on the beach and the Dunbar Show and Afro Arts Theater. So there are just tons of articles being and interviews. People call me all the time. And so now after, 42 or something years, people are interested in what we did back during the 60s.
Well, can we backpedal? Can we start with your travels out of the country this year?
Yes, that was quite exciting because of my sons, the Hypnotic. They are such a blessing to me.
Their brass ensemble.
Yes, the Hypnotic Brass Ensemble.
How many pieces?
Well, it's 8 of my sons, and they usually carry a drummer. But on this particular foray, we had Fela Kuti's son, Femi Kuti. And he's a very good drummer. And there were several other people, a very beautiful young lady from Mali named Fatou, and she sang very beautifully. And I put the thumb piano behind her on a couple of things.
All right.
So
what countries?
Mali.
No, what countries did you visit in Europe?
Oh, in Europe, well, we performed in Cork Island as a kind of warm-up to get ready.
Okay.
And then we performed in London at the Barbican Theater, which is a couple of blocks from the Palace, and more or less the intellectuals.
Community.
Yeah. All of our performances had thousands of people. The attendance was, the first floor, the second floor, and the third floor. All you could see was heads. And they asked me to describe one of my compositions because of the historical content in it, and they were quite elated at that. I realized that my record's been selling in London for several years, and so I think that's part to do for the crowd that they had there. But anyway, the Hypnotic, they just wiped everything out. They're such a fantastic group, and they've taken what I've given them and added on to it exponentially.
Well, you know, one of the shows that I'm going to be showing, vintage show, with you and your son Malik.
Yes,
we were actually talking about the youngster who you said would come downstairs when he was very young,
that's
like about 3.
Yeah, that's Tariq.
Right, he'd come down and try to join the rehearsals.
Yes,
and you'd send him back up. And finally, you saw that with such determination, you allowed him to remain.
I let him to start.
And he started playing the trumpet at what
3,
age? At 3 years old.
Yes, and I remember the first performance we had was at CVS High School. And he walked out on front. I had a number where he started out, and he walked out in front on the stage, and everybody said, "Oh, look at that little boy! He's holding that trumpet. Look at him!" You know, and he picked it up and he played so beautiful. The whole audience was stunned. You couldn't hear anything. And he's sparkling now. You hear him when you hear Hypnotic Ensemble, you hear his like golden voice.
Absolutely.
On his trumpet.
Malik, who was on the show that I referenced, you told a story about when you were going to go to play and the bassist was ill and couldn't perform, and he said he could do it.
Right.
And you doubted it.
Yes.
But he practiced and practiced.
He was determined.
You said you saw him actually crying.
Yes, his hands bled. You know, because his bass, he wasn't accustomed. He hadn't built his resistance up to the bass. But he was going to play that part, and his hands bled and everything. But he wiped that play out. He played it to a T. And Malik is still the best bassist I've seen. I haven't come into maybe one that I know that I went to school with. His name was Wendell Marshall, and he spent 28 years on Broadway, the longest performer on Broadway in Broadway history. But Wendell was a thorough. He ate up everything pertaining to the bass. And his cousin was Jimmy Blanton, who originated the bass concept.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Jimmy. Most people have forgotten about him. He played with Duke Ellington, and Duke wrote a song for him called Jack the Bear, and he was featured on that. But before his time, people played bass. They played the bow.
Okay.
And he could get pizzicato so strong, and with that thump in it that, you know, everybody else fell in line after him.
Right.
So he is the father of present-day bass players.
Wonderful. You also mentioned that in order to really be a musician, you really need to play all of the instruments or more than one instrument.
Well, I think especially to write, I don't think people should write for instruments they can't play, because you should realize the difficulties and the advantages of the instrument before you write for it. And so that's how I got into just going around all the different instruments when I was in school. And they were all available, so I'd take one after another, you know. But to bring it in perspective, you have to build up your chops, so to speak. Whatever part of your body you're going to use, your body has to adjust to that instrument. And so that means that you've got to do a lot. You've got to go to bed with the instrument. And to do that with all of the instruments is quite you have to live a long time.
You just recently gave a lecture at Northeastern Illinois University's Carruthers Center for Inner City Studies. I missed that because I had to be away, but I want to know something about the subject and the content.
Well, the main thing I think I tried to convey in that presentation was about Ra in us, or Uranus, the planet. Most of the people that I come in contact with are completely unaware of cosmic energies in their lives. And so I try to show how we are related to the cosmos, and we gave some performances that would speak of that, and we also showed the constellations in the sky. And I had various students sitting in different parts of the audience, and they, as I pointed to the constellations, they named them to let the people know that there are some of us that are learning the sky. and we're not learning it looking for a place to go.
Not trying to go to heaven.
Yeah, we're trying to more or less communicate with our ancestors, because they looked at the same sky and they made animal figures and different people out of these various parts of the sky, and the relationship that they developed with those parts of the sky told them things that we don't know. And so when our people were brought here on the slave ships, all of them knew parts of the sky. And the thing I keep emphasizing to people, I forgot to bring it along today, was my rolling pin.
Oh, yes.
Because all over the South we had that game. Last night, night before, 24 robbers at my door. I got up, let them in, hit them in the head with a rolling pin. So I showed them the rolling pin in the sky. I showed them the Milky Way, which was what they had to cross the Milky Way to get in to the constellation called Orion. Well, in ancient times, for instance, in ancient Kemet, it was called Osiris, and it was called Sahu. But the old name was Sa and Hu and Sahu. Those names were some of the developments over the eons that these people used that as the primary lesson of life. And in the ancient times, it was not a man that was God, it was the law that was God, the law of rhythm and harmony that is before our eyes every night. And men emulated that, because there's a group of stars that look like a man sitting on a throne. And so, and I have a woodcut from ancient Ethiopia that goes back before anyone knows this man sitting on a throne, and he has his finger up like this in meditative state. And so this is what that last night before was about. Somebody gave the little slave children this riddle so that it would be retained and we would know who we are, that we are the original people of this planet, and that speaks to the original rules and laws that we live by. It did not follow any man as God.
You know, I'm thinking about what you said about the lack of interest that we have in the cosmos.
Yes.
And I'm also thinking that we think that our concerns or our affairs are all here. You know, terrestrial.
Yeah.
They're all here, and we don't have time to be concerned about what's going on above us, because there's so much going on around us.
I don't think it's the time. I think it's priorities. See, we don't have any knowledge. If we had been with our ancestors, if we had progressed from a culture where the people loved us and wanted to care for us and teach us about the various rhythms of life, then we would know that the cosmos is an example of everything we go through. You know, now I'll come down, just because some people might think I've lost my mind, I'll come down and get real specific. Melanin, we know, rules our bodies. And so melanin is a prime part of our diurnal rhythm, which is day and night. Now, melanin is produced when the light shuts down from the light. But when it shuts down, we get melanin, and then it facilitates the repair of all of our body's cells while we sleep. But as soon as light comes in day, the melanin shuts off. So here we are going through a night and day cycle of melanated body improvements, sustaining. Now understand this. We came from the equatorial land where the light was 12 hours night and 12 hours day year round.
In balance.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But we moved to places like Chicago where the light fluctuates. Now, we are 42 degrees north, and I've determined that for every 7 degrees of latitude, we get a change of 1 hour of light. And so since we are 42 degrees, that's 6 times 7, so we get 6 hours difference in light here. That means that in the summer, we have 15 hours of light, and in the winter, we have 9 hours of light. And that fluctuation from one to the other actually controls our bodies, both going down in the winter and coming up in the spring, I mean, the fall and spring. And so the equinox, which is equal day and night, which occurs every spring and every fall, is the point that all African people marked whenever they went anywhere. You take the people, ancient people of India, that was the first thing they marked when they established the Indus River civilizations, was the point where the sun is equal day and equal night, because from that they determined the solstice. Now the solstice is just the opposite of the equal day and night. It's the furthest extreme of light difference. That's June 21st, summer solstice,
and December
21st. Now, that time tells us the knowledge that we need to know and to communicate with our ancestors. I have determined that rolling pin that's held in the hand of the man in the sky marks the place where the summer solstice takes place. And that's what that riddle was about. And the summer solstice takes place this year. You see, and so that means that that's the special time. It is a 25,920 year cycle that is beginning now. See, that's knowledge. You don't go to a university or anywhere. You know, you're not trying to find out how to get to some planet or how good the earth looked from up in the sky and all of that. It's knowledge that our ancestors had, and that knowledge helped them exist on a high level for many, many, many thousands of years. But when we came into decline, then it was necessary for us to be renewed, which I feel that our enslavement is a process of renewing, because we lost all of that knowledge. And the only source of that knowledge is in our soul. You understand me?
Yes, I'm listening.
You can't get it anywhere else. You can read and you can go to all kind of masters, but what's in your soul is what you have to reach for in order to relate to what they understood, because we carry that in our blood. That's our value, our true value on this earth. And I'm glad that I had an opportunity to explain that to as many people that might look at this, whether they reject it or not. If the truth is in them, they'll know what I'm saying, because the truth has its own defense.
Well, that's a wonderful way to put it, because that's so clear.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that we ought to discuss not just the cosmos, but and our inattention or lack of interest in it, but the fact that we don't include that or consider that in our affairs. We keep trying to create things and fix things and plan things and organize things and control things.
See?
And if I'm listening, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that the cosmos is a governing force.
Right. It's rhythm and harmony.
Of everything that is going on around us. And so the best laid plans of mice and men will be wrought if we don't understand how that figures in.
Yeah, it has to harmonize with that.
Okay.
Everything. That's why you have to study it, so you can understand what to harmonize with.
Okay.
But here we harmonize to laws that are made by men's rules. Yeah, rules.
Men
they
can't
call
make
them laws. No, that's true. They can't make laws.
Rules can be broken,
I'm
but laws cannot.
I'm glad you brought that out. But you know, we call them. People call them laws, and that's just an egotistical foray. But actually, the confusion of the people that we follow today all around the world shows how much knowledge they have. because they are backed up into a situation they cannot control and have no idea how to come out of it. There's no leader. I gave a lecture back at the Equinox in the spring that Obama would become the first world leader, and he missed his chance. He may still make that. I made the prediction because he was in a position to become the first world leader in modern times. But he had to follow what is within rather than what is without. And he followed what put him in office, without.
Well, I always make the point that black and politician are mutually exclusive terms.
Yeah, they are.
Because in order for you to be a politician, you have to deal with the interests that put you in office and keep you in office. And usually those forces are not black.
Well, I don't want to get political. I really don't want to do that. Maybe I even should not have mentioned his name, since the election is coming up and my statement becomes a political statement. But I was just using that because I predicted before anyone knew he had the opportunity to become the first world leader. I predicted it in April. And lo and behold, the world has changed since that time and is crying for our world leaders to step up and tell the world what to do. I think he's qualified, but you know, he has to follow from within, not without. And he's taken these external directions that are part of confusion.
Well, I certainly think he's a formidable candidate. I haven't seen anybody who
on
could
his level
be preferable.
Yeah.
And the most unfortunate thing I see is that he is so far above those with whom he's trying to communicate that they simply do not understand what he's talking about.
Well, they don't have to.
So they're opposing them in part because of bigotry and racism and all these petty things, but in large measure because they really don't know what he's talking about. It's unfortunate.
It's a rubber ball bounced over their head. Well, you see, we won't spend too much time on that, but what I wanted to point out about him is that he is sincere. He really wants to help. He really wants to lead, and he wants to move the world to another level. But you can't do that with the old stuff. See, he came on the scene, change, and everybody heard that. You know, change, this is what we want, change. And you might think that one man can't change, but there was an opportunity for him to change. He could have gone down not trying to listen to other people, but to listen from within. That's what great leaders do. They have to hook up with an internal source and let that guide them. That's what takes me to where I am. If I had used my own mind, I wouldn't even be alive today. You know, I would not. I mean, I live because I listen. I listen to my inner voice, and it changed me 50 years ago at the same time he was born. And that's why I know that I predicted he could be the leader, because he was born under the right cosmic circumstances.
Well, you said you don't want to talk about politics a long time, so I'm going to help you get off the subject.
Let's go back to the boys. Let's go
Okay.
back to the boys. I didn't tell you about the tour, you know. It was such a revealing thing, and I had my friend Thorvald with me. We saw something, you know, it was revealing, that the tour consisted of 4 cities, Cork, Ireland, and then the next, I think that was the 28th, and then we went to London on the 29th of October, and then we went to Marseille, France, and that was, I think, the 2nd or the 1st of November, and then back to Dublin, Ireland. And so those 4 performances gave me a good view of the current day Europe, also the position that my sons have, because they enjoy wide acceptance in wherever they perform. In Marseille, France, they started cheering something like an hour before the concert. I never heard anything like that. I've been playing since the 30s. You know what I mean? I never heard of anything like that. I mean, it was a roar in the audience, just anticipation of what they were going to experience. And everyone had to come out of the dressing room and look at this audience. What is wrong with these people? I mean, it couldn't have been alcohol or drugs or nothing like that. It was just anticipation of what they were going to experience. And they wouldn't let them stop. After we ended the concert, they made us come back for 2 encores. You know, it's just unbelievable because you don't hear anything about them in this country. But when you go over there, you find out that the people all know them. They worked 70-something jobs, I think, in Europe last year. And so it was just revealing to me to see how well they accepted and how strong they are and how well they played. When we played our first engagement in Cork Island, they played 2 hours and backed up all of the acts in our show, and then went across the street and played another hour and a half at another show.
They're inexhaustible.
Yeah, you know, such power, and they play trumpets and brass instruments. Those are difficult instruments.
I know.
You know, but they play so much that they're on top of it.
Well, you mentioned in a previous interview about it's the breath.
Yes, it is. And there are techniques that I taught them. They've taken them well. And so there's a documentary, in fact, there are a couple of documentaries coming out on us. I don't know when they'll be published. They may be waiting on me to croak.
Oh, God. Well, you'll be with us for a lot longer.
I'm not bothered about it. I don't control anything. See, that's left up to the powers, you know. Now, the other thing I wanted to put out is that being aware of how much Moors influenced Europe and how much the European
Africans.
Technology came from the Moors of Spain, who came directly out of Africa. And that's why they were called Moors instead of Muslims. You know, they were Muslims, but they were Moors. And these Moors, when they were captured, or when the European community got enough energy to overcome the Moors civilization in Toledo, Spain, 1105 A.D., well, the Moors were given the opportunities to become Christians or die. And so they took to the waters, and the ones that couldn't take to the waters, which I mean the Mediterranean. They went all over the Mediterranean. And that's what I saw when I was flying into Marseille, France. That was one of their first stops. And Milan, Italy, I was there a year before last. That was one of their stops. And that's why it's called Milan, Italy, the melanin.
Okay.
You see. And there are things that are in our history that if we just take a little time, we can learn a lot about what Malcolm called bamboozle mean. Because the world's been bamboozled into thinking about European being the originator of all these concepts. And they merely took what they could and built off of that. And there's so much more of it that they can't build on that is waiting for our children to take and build on. Once the truth has been put on the table, then we can look at the real world that can provide for us as long as we need it.
But we're not educating our own children, Brother Kelan.
Well, we can't. We can't. We don't have an education ourselves. What we're going to educate them with?
So when do our children get?
They're already here.
They possess the knowledge.
I predict that from 19 down, they have the energy. It's in their blood. You see, every people out here, every people throughout history has a time. When you look at those Indus River civilization 5,000 years ago, or you look at the Ethiopian empire, or you look at the Greek civilization, or you go down through the Cambodians, ancient Cambodia, you go to China, the ancient Chinese. All of these civilizations had a time that they came up, and they came up through their seed, through their children, you know, taking that system, and great leaders came amongst them and opened up the way for the rest. That's what we are getting ready to experience now. And I predict that they already walking the earth now. It's just that they're too young to express themselves.
You were in China.
Yeah,
You were invited to come to China.
That was why I learned when I went there the uniformity of all civilizations are African system. It's one African system that they all use. And when I went down in Ming's tomb, I think I mentioned that on one of your shows. It was 7 stories down, and that's symbolic, 7, because 7 is the number of the cosmos. And in the ancient world, they used 7s. They didn't take all these computations and all this stuff that astronomers use today. They used 7, and through the number 7, they were able to penetrate all of the hidden relationships in the music. In fact, I had meant to bring a chart along to show how the songs that we sing are related to the same cosmic energy because of the position or the frequency of each note. And we've gotten, by us being non-musical people, they take music for other purposes. And every time they copy us, they copy something else. They don't copy the heart of the music. They copy something else, the physical parts of it. And so therefore they lose the properties that this music has to relate to our chakras and harmonize with the cosmos in our bodies to keep us in line. That's where we are sustained in knowledge and wisdom when we learn these things. But I speak about it now, and I know it's shocking for people to hear things like this. But like I said, the truth has its own defense. And it's time now. I think people have advanced enough or decreased enough to understand that, there's something beyond our grasp. And that is the knowledge of our ancestors. Because as I was talking about this generation that's here now, they're in homes all over America. The descendants of the survivors of the Middle Passage. And they're not taught the Middle Passage. They're not taught that the majority of them are in the Atlantic Ocean, and that path, the same pathway that those hurricanes come over, is where they brought us in the whole of slave ships. And because it's an unpleasant thing and people have a difficulty understanding, well, I wouldn't let that happen to me, or I can't relate to that. But we were captured, we were kidnapped from our relatives and from our loved ones and brought here in the whole of ships. And the majority of us didn't make it. But those of us who did make it are strong. There's a strength in us. The best of us were preserved to become slaves. And in that energy is the strength of us today, and that's what is emerging in our children. No one anywhere on earth can get beyond our music, and that's the first stage of our coming of age. You go everywhere, you hear them talking, speaking rap, trying to express themselves, even, like the people out on what they call the Arab Spring, when they went off, they were using rap music as their fundamental root of expression. All over the world, wherever you go, people are using our music. As I think I mentioned, when I was in Milan, Italy, every morning when I went to eat breakfast in the restaurant, there was the cook was playing Mahalia Jackson.
In Milan, Italy.
Every morning. I mean, not some mornings, but that's what I had to listen to. But I love Mahalia, she was a great woman. But we missed that greatness. See, after so much time go by, we want something else. We'd take somebody over here, somebody there. But these people were not like Mahalia. She was almost an institution. And we have people like that, Nat King Cole. We got people that just there's no describing them, see. Like that fellow I was telling you about on the bass who picked up the bass and started picking it, What we have to do is settle back and realize that we don't know anything. And when we realize that, then we can begin to learn. because nobody in this nation or in that place of that can teach you. You must learn from within. And if you can't become directed from within, then you should attach yourself to someone who is, because we have changed worlds. That position in the cosmos I told you about, 25,920 years, is in the rolling pin. We're in a new world. We're in a world we haven't seen for that length of time. And so that world can only be facilitated from within. We spent all this time, the last 2,000 years especially, dealing with trade, going here and there and everywhere, trading with people, until we've abused trade to the place where it's a bad word. You know, if actually look at this jacket, most likely was made in Korea or China. All the tools and the machines and things that we buy are made by other people other than ourselves, and it's less quality. You're old enough to remember when, especially electronics or anything that was pertaining to machinery was impeccable in this environment. But when they shipped it over to other people, it breaks down. I turned my stove on the other day, and the little ring that shows the heat, the temperature,
right,
popped off. I said, oh, why would the ring pop off? You know what I mean? It's just junk. Almost everything that come out of those environments are not at the quality or the standard that it should be.
And many of them are toxic because they're using all kinds of questionable materials to create these things.
They're trying to make money. And that's why I was emphasizing the emphasis of the trade world was to make money. And that's why we've got this fight between the 1% and the 99%. People will never be satisfied. I mean, they take all they can get. But the object of trade was balance. I give you this, and you give me that. And we become friends because we make each other's lives better. Pardon me. That is what trade is all about, but it was taken to its lowest level in today. And so now you have all these government installations around the world like they're struggling over Iraq and Afghanistan and all those places. Nothing but trade problems, you know. And politics is nothing but money. That's all it is. If you got the money, you can run with the best of them. You know, if you don't, get out of the way.
Well, the whole society has been commodified.
Yeah.
Everything has a dollar value.
Yeah. It's reached its end. See, that expression is not valid. There's 7 billion people on this earth. Are you going to say that you can pick out any one of them and say who or what they are? No. No, we're in another age now. We have entered another age. And I call it spirit because spirit is the way you go in for. And I see that each of us are able to make spiritual or inward contributions to the whole of society. And that is what we are entering. Whether we like it or not, we are there.
Is that despite whatever kind of conduct we participate in? Is it despite whatever kind of diet we ingest? I mean, can we just be any kind of people and be productive and creative and
Let's look at the
valuable?
sunrise. Let's look at the sunrise. The sun doesn't come up, bop, off the horizon like that. It rises in degrees of change of light. And then at a certain point, bop, you see that light, that sunlight. And it has to come on up and open up to itself, you know. It's a process, and we're in the process. But the ancients knew when that process, they knew when the beginning of time or the beginning of cycles were.
But don't we have to cooperate?
You don't have to worry about that. It takes place by itself. It's in the blood.
If you're out of harmony with the cycles, then how can you maximize the benefit from the cycles?
I doubt if you can, except that your needs will guide you to what you have to have. For instance, when the money collapses, don't you think people will turn to other venues of safety?
And how dare you use such profanity saying when the money collapses.
Right.
Now, you know we expect the money to go on forever.
Well, I'm sorry that nothing goes on forever. And so what I'm saying is that we have entered another age, and the money people, the politicians, the artists, everything is corrupt out here. We can't look to any area of our daily practice that has sustained us. The religions, everything has failed to sustain us in a system of progress. And our children should bring us that. If a man and a woman come together and have children, and those children should be more than their parents. But we're not getting that now. We've turned the corner where the children, in some cases, are much worse than the parents. And then we've got children who feel that they're not going to live but so long. They don't have a guide before them to pattern their lives after. So yes, we've reached the end of this mistake. But I feel the mistake was necessary. I feel this is a part of the process. Because when you look at the sun, it goes down at night and it comes back up the next day. You see? That's knowledge.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking about the present
generation.
No, actually, I'm thinking about the present forecasts, of things that are being discussed in the media about the economies in Europe and their effect on this economy because of the instability that exists.
It was based on the wrong thing.
And so forth. And I'm thinking now, when I was younger, I knew when whole families lived in one room.
Right.
They were called kitchenettes.
Right.
And there was a community kitchen.
I lived in one on Michigan.
When families took turns.
Yeah, going to the bathroom and the kitchen.
Right. So people knew how to share.
Yes.
They knew how to live in harmony with each other. They weren't fighting and at each other's throats.
But there was just as much corruption out there then. There was just as much prostitution. There was just as much drinking of alcohol as we have drugs today. We were all hiding from reality because we didn't know what reality was. I lived through that. I sat on a bandstand in every situation you can think of and looked at the worst and the best. You understand?
I'm not saying it was better. I'm saying that it's unthinkable now for people to think of themselves as having to downsize and having to live together. Everybody wants their own TV, their own car, their own house, their own everything. And they feel deprived if they don't have these things. If you're talking about the collapse of money, if you're talking about the possibility of an economic downturn, which would be so severe that people would not be able to care for themselves or care for the ones that they love, then we're talking about a situation in which we are going to have to get a sustainable community in which we do share with each other.
Well, let's start with this first. Let's start with this. At what time since we've been here have we been up as a people?
Well, not here.
Huh?
Not here.
I can't think of it either. And so, at what time have they, captors, or those who control us, at what time have they been down?
The question answers itself.
All right, then. So then in mathematics, we know nothing is forever.
Okay.
So it is only fair to think that if they go down, we must go up.
Well, there's a saying in our community that if they catch a cold, we catch pneumonia. Yeah. So our thinking would be that if they go down, we go further down. We pass them on the way down.
We've owned down.
And provide the floor.
No. I myself have been evicted right here in Chicago. I've gone through as much poverty as I would say most people have experienced. And with the knowledge that I have, because I was living by a code that eventually brought me to where I am today. There are lots of people out there who sense inwardly what to do, but they go against their better judgment and satisfy the external world for what it needs of us. And it is that accepting from the minute we enter kindergarten. We are trained to serve people. We're never trained to serve ourselves. And we tried one time in the 60s. We thought about, equality, and we pursued equality. And then it resulted in us being in a worse condition now than we were before we created a stir. You follow? Mm-hmm. As a result, a direct result of those who control us imposing greater measures on us. Let's take the last administration of Chicago. If we take the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, and the millennium, you will see a definite pattern of downgrading black people during that period. And what we have, we've seen other people, immigrants brought into this country, Africans and everybody, given positions of authority and given, relative ease. The American dream, they've experienced it while we were being sucked into buying houses and then criticized for trying to have something we couldn't afford and then have it taken away from us. I just read the tax delinquent homes that are going up for sale on 9 different days starting December the 30th here in Chicago. 10,000 homes are up for grabs.
And there will be more by the time December 30th.
10,000. No, they list them. The law requires that they have to list them under a code name. There are 10,000 tax properties that are going up for sale. Now, who do you think those sales are going to, and how much money do you think they're going to? The old system is all about grab, take. That's what this city is. It's been that. Going back way before you could name anybody. Let's go back to the Columbian Exposition when they went to the to the people and asked them to give us a system of education, and they gave us something. You go back to the stockyards. I mean, there's so much in the history that we haven't pursued about the reality of our existence right here and now. But I'm saying with any knowledge or without any knowledge, the process is going to take place, and I'm just announcing what you will all see, whether you like it or not. That's the result.
Can we say that there are no terrestrial beings that control the cosmos?
No.
And so therefore we don't have to really worry that they will actually destroy the planet?
No, they can't.
That they cannot destroy that which they did not create?
They're right.
And that there's let's say a positive note in the fact that we are preserved.
Well, let's go back to alchemy.
All right.
Chem, you know what that means.
Yes, black.
Yes, all right. See, and so all is translated as meaning knowledge.
Okay.
It's knowledge, superior knowledge.
Okay.
So when you go back to that, nothing is destroyable. It only changes form.
Okay.
So everything that we're doing right here is an expression of a form that we have created to benefit ourselves. Mm-hmm. For instance, like we live in a cold environment, we've created heat. We've created air conditioning for the cold, for the hot weather and things like that. Well, our ingenuity is what makes the difference in the transformation of materials. And so I'm saying that our people are coming into a great time. Our children, all of the children of the earth, all of them are coming into another reality of mental ability and purpose in life. And that's what we need. Actually, the change is the beginning of another age. And I'm announcing that it's here because the ancestors told us it was coming. You see. Now, let's look at the materials that we have to deal with. It's the expressions that we have. We have sciences, for instance, physics. These laws were devised by people's understanding. Some of them might be wrong, Some of them might be right. But when our young people come and relate to the ancient world, they will be in harmony with the cosmos. Their laws will be based on cosmic reality. And so that does not acquiesce to people's theories. And just like you might think, I've got a theory. No, I've studied the heavens for 50 years, and I'm telling you what I've seen. And it hooks up with everything you know. You can't find a flaw in it. If you do, I would welcome it. But it's saying that there are children already, they've been here 19 years. And they are developing now. When their expression comes to take over, they will bring in another world that we haven't seen.
So as elders, may we sit on the sidelines and simply observe, or should we wade out into the thick of things?
I think that everyone who has the ability to invoke their spiritual energies will know what to do instinctively. Those who have no inroad to their inner self will be destroyed from lack of that, because they won't know which way to go or what to do at any given situation. But there's an inner voice in us that knows. Our bloodline knows. I mean, I tell people about a little sister. She's 2 years old, comes up and dances at where I perform. When I play on the harp or the francophone, she comes up and dances. And she's been doing that since she was a year and a half old. Now, there's no way the dances that she does could have come from anything you see out here, because you can see it's an ancient form that she's experiencing. And she's too young.
This is now?
Huh? Yes.
This is now? This is where you
she comes,
on
at
weekends?
the Ethiopian Cafe.
Okay.
Yeah, she comes up there about maybe once a month or something like that. I never know when she's coming, but she shows up and she comes up to the stage and dances.
How many instruments do you play during your performances? Are you still using your trumpet and your harp?
Flugelhorn, French horn, know, thumb pianos, but the main thing is the harp. The rest of it is just window dressing.
Okay.
But I play a lot of francophone because people like the melodies, and I'd like to explain something about it. Because
right ahead. We got 5 minutes, and
all right,
welcome
good.
To it all.
I'll play a little bit, and I'd just like to explain what I'm playing, because this isn't just an instrument, and when I play, I have to have form. Well, the form I use have to be cosmic form. If they are not cosmic form, it's just like a painter who paints a color that does not exist in nature. Then he's outside and contrary to nature. Well, see, I'm inside and in harmony with nature when I play. And that's what people like. That's what they experience deep in their soul. When I'm playing the cosmic law. And the melodies are tuned properly, and I understand what the tunings mean. And so whether you like it or not, if you listen inwardly, you can gain something. It brings you back to the center. And the last thing I want to say is that everybody inherited that. All of us. All the people out here walking this earth have some degree of the inner life, because we are eternal people. We will not, this birth that we have is an experience, and that death is an experience. When you go to the funeral home, you don't see the person you know, it just looks like them. That spirit, the very essence of that person has gone somewhere else and will return again and again and again. All right? So that's where I'm on the frequency of eternity. The Frankie phone.
Frankie phone, name for your mother.
Yeah, Frankie May. Yeah, she was quite a person. And I tried to honor her because when I made the instrument, I knew that it would reach its place. And so I wanted her name to be attached to that. You know, we don't know how far it may go.
Well, didn't it go with Earth, Wind, and Fire?
Well, I'd hate to mention that.
Okay.
Because I didn't consider that to be enlightened.
All right.
Really, you know, I think only enlightened gifts are when you give, not receive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the purpose of your gift. That's why our ancestors empowered us to give, not to receive, not to take, not to grab, not to steal, but to give and share. And that's what I try to do. If that's my legacy, is that I share.
Thank you, Brother Kelan, Phil Cohran.
Thank you so much. You're an angel, you know that.
Well, I think if anybody called me that but you, I would not be as honored, but I'm deeply honored to be so highly regarded by you. And of course, you know, I have the utmost respect for you and your work and your family.
Yes.
All of whom reflect you with great performances and great skill.
Yes, they are. I'm proud of all of them. Some of them have difficulties, but it's nothing but the stages of life. And those stages will manifest themselves, I'm sure, into great rewards. That's it. I didn't turn it on.